We continue now at the top of Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 23b. The Mishnah says, Nipol hanimtza besoch chamishim amma. If you find a young dove within 50 amos, Rashi says Nipol again gozel, it's a young dove. Hanimtza besoch chamishim amma shel shovach. It's found within 50 amos of a particular dovecote. Harehu shel bala shovach, so it belongs to the owner of that shovach. Chutz me chamishim amma. Now let's say it's found outside of 50 amos. It's found outside of 50 amos of the shovach. Harehu shel motzo, so then it belongs to the person who finds it. Nimtza bein shnei shovchos. Let's say it's found between two shovchos. Karov lazeh shelo. If it's closer to this one, it belongs to him. Karov lazeh shelo, closer to the other one, it belongs to that one. Mechsal mechsa, if it's 50-50. If it's exactly in between, shneim yachloku, so then they both divide it. Rashi here says, Nimtza bein shnei shovachos. It's found between two shovchos, besoch chamishim l'shneim, and it's within 50 amos of both of them. So then again, that's when we follow these halachas. If it's closer to one of them, it goes to that one. If it's right in between, they divide it. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Chanina says, Rov of Vikarov, if you have a situation of doubt, and you can follow either the majority or you could follow what is closer, Hol Chanachar Harov, we follow the majority. V'avagav the ruba doraisa, the korva doraisa, even though the concept of majority is doraisa, and the concept of karov, of that which is closer, is doraisa, afilu hachi, nevertheless, ruba adif, it's preferred to follow majority. And Rashi explains, rov v'karov, you have majority and you have something nearby. In bod dover lefanenu, let's say something comes before us, some kind of a doubt. V'yesh bo lahalach achar harov v'hukach, we could follow majority, it would be the following conclusion. V'imtelech bo achar hakarov enokach, if you followed what's nearby, it wouldn't be that conclusion. So halach bo achar harov, you should follow majority. V'yavagav the tarvayu doraisa, now even though both concepts are doraisa, ruba doraisa, we know the majority is doraisa, because it's written in the pasuk acharei rav lahatos, you follow the majority. Ukvekorva doraisa, we also know that the concept of karov is doraisa, what's nearby, because it's written v'hayo ha'ir hakrova, whatever city is closest to the body. This is talking about by Egla Arufa. You have to determine which city is going to do the ceremony of Egla Arufa, and we go by the city that is closest. That's where we assume that the murderer came from, so the concept of karov is also doraisa. And the Gemara continues, Meisiv Rabbi Zera asks, it says in the pasuk, exactly this pasuk by Egla Arufa, it says, V'hayo ha'ir hakrovel acholol, it says that the city that is closest to the corpse, you follow that city. V'afagav diga achrisi d'nefisha mina, even though there's another city that's larger than that city. Rashi explains, V'afagav dika achrisi sherechoka mimenu, there might be another city that's more distant, shegedola mimenu b'rovam, but it has more people, so we should follow Rov, but apparently we don't follow Rov, apparently we follow Karov. So the Gemara answers, B'deleka, there is no such city. Rashi says, B'deleka rechoka mizu, there is no further city, shegedola mimenu, that's larger than this one, elakula and shavas, rather they're all equal. But the Gemara still asks, V'leisel basaruba di'alma, why don't we follow the majority of the world? We're saying it's from this particular city which is close, but the rest of the world outside of the city certainly has more people. And the Gemara answers to that, B'yosheves bein aharim, we're talking about where it's happening, it's among the mountains. Rashi says, bein aharim, this happened between the mountains. She'in derech rotzchem lavo mimakomos achem lekan. It's not the way of murderers to come from other places to over here between the mountains. And the Gemara continues, Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, Nipol hanimtza besoch chamishim amma, if you have a young dove that's found within 50 amos of a shovach, hareu shel bala shovach, it belongs to the owner of the shovach. Ve'avagav diko acharina denafesh minei, now even though there's another shovach that might be larger, but it's a little further away, it seems like we're following Karov. And the Gemara says, no, but there is no other shovach, that's why we're following over here, the one that's within 50 amos. But the Gemara says, Yachi, if so, Ema Seifa, let's look at the end of the Mishnah. It said at the end of the Mishnah, Chutz mechamishim amma, if it's found outside of 50 amos, Harehu shel motza, so then it belongs to the person who found it. But the Gemara says, V'i deleka, but if there's no other shovachs around at all, this is the only one, so even if it's outside of 50 amos, Vade mehu nafal, certainly the bird, certainly the dove fell from this particular shovach, it should still belong to the owner of the shovach. And the Gemara says, Hacham asking here, what are we talking about? B'medada, we're talking about a young dove that is hopping along, it doesn't fly, and therefore there's no way that it came from outside of 50 amos. As the Gemara explains, Diyamar Ravukva Bar Chama, because Ravukva Bar Chama says, Kol HaMedada, any dove that hops, that doesn't fly, Ein Medada Yoser Minor, it doesn't hop more than 50 amos. And Rashi explains, Lav, is it not, Afagav De'iko Achrina Chutz L'Chamishim Amma, even though there is another shovach outside of 50 amos, the Nefisha Mehai, which is bigger, and the Gemara said, no, there is no such thing. And then the Gemara said, well, Ema Seifa, let's look at the end. Now Rashi notes, Hu Adin De'Havi Motzi L'Mifrach Nami. Now the Gemara could have asked over here as well, the same question it asked above, Leizel Basar Ruba Di'alma. Why not follow the majority of the world? If we're going to say that there's no other shovachs, but still the majority of the world is going to be hefker, and why do we follow this particular shovach that's closer? They could have asked that. However, the Gemara has a stronger question. Again, the stronger question is to ask from the Seifa, where outside of 50 amos, if there are no other shovach, still we should say it belongs to the owner of the shovach. And the Gemara answered, and here what are we talking about? Kulam asnisin mitarzu b'medada. The entire Mishnah, we can explain it, that we're talking about where the dove is hopping, but goes al sheino yachal lof, meaning to say it's a young dove that's not able to fly. Ela b'didoy ma'at ma'at, it just hops little by little. Hilkach tocha misham. Therefore, if it's within 50 amos of the shovach shel bala shovach, it belongs to the owner of the shovach. V'avagav diko achrini dinafish. Now, even though there might be another one that's larger, because we know it could not have hopped more than 50 amos. V'chutz shel chamishim shel motzo, and therefore, if it's outside of 50 amos, it belongs to the one who found it. To kevan dein medada yoser mechamishim, since it doesn't hop more than 50, v'zeh yotze chutz lanun, and this animal is outside of 50. Nafak le mitoras medada v'kom le b'toras mafriach. So now it leaves the laws of medada of an animal that's hopping, and instead it comes into the laws of a mafriach, of a bird that can fly. V'ikol amezel bei basaru b'dialm, and then already we follow the majority of the world, and that's why it belongs to the person who found it. And the Gemara continues, Boy, Reb Yirmiyah asks, Raglo achas besochno nama, let's say one of its feet is within 50 amos, Raglo achas chutz mechamishem am, and one of the feet is outside of 50 amos, Mahu, what would be the halacha over there? And the Gemara says, V'aldo, was because of this question, Afku the Reb Yirmiyah mibei midrasha, that they kicked Reb Yirmiyah out of the Beis Medrash. Rashi says, V'aldo Afku sheyam atriach aleim, he was bothering them with these kinds of questions. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, come and hear the following proof. Nimsa ben shnei shovchos karov lazeh shelo, v'karov lazeh shelo. It said in our Mishnah, if you find the dove between two shovachs, so if it's closer to this one, it belongs to that guy. If it's closer to the other one, it belongs to the other person. V'afagav dechad minayim nafesh mechavre. So here we're going by karov, even though one of the shovachs might be larger than the other. So apparently we're following karov over rov. And the Gemara says, Hachav Mayaskinan, here what are we talking about? Sheshnei and Shavin, that the two shovchos are actually equal in size, so then we follow Karav. But the Gemara still says, V'leizel basaru b'dialma, why don't we just follow majority of the world? Because the majority of the world is certainly larger than whatever might be in one of the shovachs. And the Gemara says, Hachav Mayaskinan, here what are we talking about? Now Rashi here explains, V'leizel basaru b'dialma, let's follow the majority of the world. V'lahava shel motzo, and then it would be considered ownerless, it belongs to the person who found it. And Rashi notes, the Kasal Gadaitach, right now the Gemara thinks, the Nimsa ben Shtei Shovchos, that it's found between these two Shovchos, Achutz lachamishem amanami koi, but it might not be within 50 amos of the two. It's also going on if it's, let's say, outside of 50 amos. Now, once we're already outside of 50 amos, there the Gemara can already ask, why don't we follow Ruba di Alma, the Nofik le mitoras medada, because it's no longer in the category of a dove that hops, and so that's why the Gemara is asking this question, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chav Daled Amud Aleph.